Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I think everybody up here would tell you the reason we run for office, despite what the cynicism is we do this because we want to help people. And we want to help people. If you think about it, what's the best way we can do is to help the 19 million Floridians is we help them with their health. And to me, this is an absolute no-brainer, because when you get over all the garbage, if you look at what the facts are, this is a no-brainer. This is one of the great stories that have been fed to the United States, and if we go to the facts and not the myths, we don't have much of a decision to be made. The DEA 10 years ago looked at that, and their very own administrative judge, Francis Young, said the evidence clearly establishes and shows that marijuana is capable of relieving distress and for a great number of people can get rid of disease. It is absolutely an abomination, this administrative judge for the DEA said, for us to continue to have unreasonable, arbitrary, and capricious rules that relate to marijuana. And despite that, we still have the FDA and the feds fighting it, and now, although we now have the AMA and the American College of Physicians that have now asked that we have further studies as to the medical efficacy and efficacy of cannabis. Most of us don't remember what the history, although I grew up in the 70s, so supposedly I was around with this. I apparently missed most of this part of that decade. 1937, it was actually a drug that was manufactured by Bristol Myers Squibb, Eli Lilly. The AMA fought the federal government in regulating cannabis. It was in 1970 that it became a Schedule I drug, but if you read the National Institute of Health actual letter that made it a Schedule I, the letter, it says, quote unquote, the evidence is void of any harm. I said, that can't be right. It has to be a misspelled word or the grammar's wrong, but it actually says there's no evidence of any harm. The other thing that particular letter said was that it had no therapeutic value. Guess who got a patent on cancer within the next 6 months of that particular letter by the National Institute of Health? The federal government. So somehow they didn't figure it had any therapeutic value, but at the same time the federal government goes out and gets a patent. Doesn't that tell us a whole lot more than what we need to know? It's important to know that the University of Virginia Medical School, and this is close to my heart, found out in 1975 that cannabis stops the growing of brain cancer, stops the growing of lung cancer. There are now literally studies throughout this country that show on Alzheimer's, on, as Mr. Van Zandt calls it, on glaucoma, on all, there's almost 17 diseases, including Lou Gehrig's, that if you use cannabis, it has a way of stopping that disease. These are not simply myths, these are actual scientific studies that have been verified. And the reason why most of us don't know this is 12 years ago, if you looked up a medical textbook and asked yourself, what is an endocannabinoid system? Did any of you in the room ever get taught that there was an endocannabinoid system in our bodies? No. That was because it wasn't until 12, 14 years ago that somebody finally figured it out. And that's why cannabis actually works in our system. And it's why what we have now found out in this country and through medical science is that's why if you use cannabis in the correct way, we can actually heal diseases. And so then you get the stuff, and I have the highest respect for Representative Harrell, where we need to do some things right, and I agree with her, we need to work on the bill to fix some of those, and it would be an abomination not to let those issues stop our progress, and we'll solve those problems. But the FDA was on the Wall Street Journal about how, once again, a drug that's curing people in Europe, the FDA won't do anything about. And everybody in here take a one-a-day? Everybody takes one-a-day pills. Raise your hand. Do you realize that's not right, that the FDA's never checked that out? So we shouldn't let that be the last thing that stops us on that. And I would close to remember, every 19 minutes, there's somebody in this country dies of a drug overdose. Know how many people died of a drug overdose for cannabis? 0. And when we think about this, What we're here to do is we are here to make it where the health of this country and the people in Florida are actually doing it based upon facts, not based upon fiction. And frankly, we need to be a state where guys like me who are cancer victims aren't criminals and seeking treatment I'm entitled to. Thank you.
Thank you.